If scouting would not make better Latter-day Saints, we would not have scouting in the church. But because scouting does make better Latter-day Saints, we take it into the church. You cannot divorce church work from scouting. When you're building scouting in your boys, you're building the work of God and helping to establish the kingdom on the earth. So whether your pitch happens at the door, happens in priesthood meeting, happens in a group setting, whatever, there needs to be something from your heart. And here's some little things that in my state that I can say that have done well and some that didn't. When I was asked to be in the state, to serve in the state presidency, just 2 years after I moved here. And so I decided to adopt what I'd done in Texas and California and Oregon successfully. I knew it would work because people are people and they give for the same reasons. I knew it would work in Utah. Not everybody believed me, but I knew it would, and it did. Here's what we did. I took a pledge card, I made up one, and I went to stake presidency meeting. And I gave one to everybody in stake presidency. And I said, brethren, we need to support the Boy Scouts of America. It saves and changes lives. We all know that. We think it makes a difference in the lives of our young men. That's the pitch, okay? It was a little longer than that. And everybody checked the box. Stake president didn't take out a checkbook, he simply pledged. I think the stake president pledged $500, if I remember right. And I think we raised $1,200 from those 5 people. Then, by appointment, the next bishopric training meeting we had in the High Council room, stake presidency and all the bishopric. Stake president asked me to do the speaking. We passed out pledge cards to everybody. Scouting saves and changes lives. Friends of Scouting is critical to the success of scouting in this area. Scouting as we know it in Utah Valley would not exist without it. All those little things that I've been taught to say. We raised $4,000 from that group of people, all pledges. And of course, their pledge was credited to their ward. Okay? Then, a week later, we had the High Council meeting. Same thing. Same pitch, same cards, raised $3,000. So before we ever knocked on a door or did anything, we raised $9,000, which was almost as much as we'd raised the entire year last year, knocking on doors. And guess what? How many doors did we save already, knocking on it? About 30. Okay? I've learned that training 5 people to give a pitch to 1,000 is more effective than sending 1,000 people out untrained to knock on doors. Much more effective. And then here's what we did. At the bishopric training, as we were asking these people to give, we said, brethren, you can do whatever you'd like in your ward, but here's what we think will help save you time and effort, and we'll raise more money. With your permission, one of the members of the High Council from the Aaronic Priesthood Committee meeting, we're going to train them. And we're going to come to your ward with your blessing. We hope to get this done in 3-week time. And we're going to give a brief presentation during priesthood meeting. Not in the chapel, it was in the cultural hall. And we handed out a pledge card. I was present at one of those. In fact, I did one of those. And it was a brief thing. We had the deacons go around and hand them out. We talked about how scouting makes a difference in the world and how you need to think about how important it is. And everybody there got a pledge card. And we gave them little pencils in case they didn't have anything to write with. They wrote it down. No checks. It's all pledged. And we collected the money. We ended up knocking on only about 10 doors in our ward because everybody was contacted with a presentation. This same stake, one ward decided they weren't going to do that. They would do the old-fashioned way, and we let them do that. They didn't raise near as much money. And this same ward, we gave them kind of a ballpark view of what we thought they could raise. And I'm not suggesting this. This is one thing we shouldn't do. They sent their people out to knock on doors, and after the second week, they collected enough cash and change and stuff that they thought met their requirement. And so the member of the bishopric picked up the phone and called 20 different guys and said, stop, stop. We've raised our money. Don't knock on any more doors. Now, how many of us would run a business that way? None of us would, I hope. Boy Scouts is a business. Not a business maybe in the way we think about it, what we do for work, but it is a business. We have needs. We have bricks and mortar we have to pay for. We have people. We have important things that need to be done. Yes, we're nonprofit, and yes, nonprofits need to be supported. And nonprofits, can make a profit. That's part of the deal. That's not their primary purpose. Their primary purpose is to save young men. But we're expected to have more income at the end of the year than expenses, just like a business. The difference is we don't give the profit to our board of directors as a public company would do. It goes back into the company. It goes back into the nonprofit organization. So this same state that I live in, I haven't been involved in several years. They asked me to do a presentation this last year. They've tweaked it a little bit. This year, they had the women present with the brethren when they were asked. Do you think that made a difference? Oh my goodness. They simply announced that for the first 15 minutes of the third hour, they wanted all the men and women together for a presentation. They'd asked me to come to do one of the wards. It was the 16th ward. The lecture hall was packed. I mean, there's been 500 people in there. They just split it up. And I gave a quick pitch. We passed out the pledge cards, the pencils, and I noticed something. The women, many of them were kind of nudging their husbands. That wasn't present during priesthood meeting. Okay? And they were both there as decision makers. I thought that was a better thing. Some bishops have done it as the fifth Sunday subject of scouting in our youth and used Friends of Scouting as a way to show it's important that we do that. However you do it, I'm simply giving you suggestions of how we can simplify and raise more money. And they should be our goals. Our goals is to raise as much money as we possibly can to support the program that the church has adopted for our young people. It's called the Boy Scouts of America. If you have a presentation at a ward, you have a pile of pledge cards, don't wait till you have all 8 wards. Turn those in. I don't want to have to deal with them. Turn them in as soon as you get them. They'll all be credited to your district and your ward and state, and turn them in as you get them. And so, because every year the council is faced with somebody's written a check, and 10 months later it hasn't been cashed. And they find, an unsuspecting member of the bishopric who was just doing his job, who put him on his dresser, and 25 other sheets of paper, and they find this check 10 months old sitting there. Okay? We want to make sure that we turn it in quickly so that it can be processed, especially if there's a pledge involved. And what is the definition of success? Everybody has a chance to give. Everybody. The widow at the end of the street, who you might think, she's on a limited income. I can't tell you how many stories I've heard of women who saw somebody walk by their door, and you might change your pitch a little bit. You might have a different asking price, but many times they're looking forward to the chance to give. I met with Sandra Rogers, who is in her 60s. She's the vice president of BYU, never married, lives up in the hills of Provo, and she told me that she looks forward to her Friends of Scouting every year. She looks forward to the boys coming to her door because she wants to support a program that made a difference in her life. You might think, by just knowing her, that she never married, she doesn't have any boys in the program. You'll be surprised if some of the high priests in your ward and some of the women, make sure everybody's asked to give. And everybody's asked to give generously. It costs about $100, rounded up, a year for the Utah National Parks Council to serve one youth. So that's a nice round figure, $100. If everybody gave $100, we would raise a lot more money than we have been. Without Friends of Scouting, eventually, we'd have no camps. We'd have no scouting. We'd have no professionals. We'd have no buildings. Eventually, essentially, we would get down to what it looks like in England, which is almost non-existent. Many Boy Scout councils do a capital campaign. Capital campaign is bricks and mortar. They'll build a new camp or a new service center, and they tell people, the professional fundraisers, if you pledge to the capital campaign, this is above and beyond what you would do for Friends of Scouting. It doesn't replace Friends of Scouting, because then you really haven't accomplished much. It needs to be above and beyond your Friends of Scouting pledge. Without the money that's been given in the past, we wouldn't have scouting in Cedar City. We wouldn't have Thunder Ridge. And that, yes, I might have my project I want to give, and we should feel free to give to a specific project and give to your troop, as fitting within church guidelines. But don't have that replace the bread and butter of Friends of Scouting. Everything else is topping. It's the bread and butter that makes it happen. And that's what we're talking about tonight. That's Friends of Scouting. It's the bread and butter, it's the heart and soul of the finances for Scouting. And we appreciate you being here tonight, taking time from your schedule to come here